What's going on, people? Welcome to United View. Welcome to your Manchester United transfer update show. What's happening, people? Owen, what you saying? How you doing, bro? How's it going?
I'm all good, Flex. We're creeping towards the weekend, creeping towards the start of the season. We're nearly there. Every day is a new day, and it's full of stories, transfer updates, up, downs. This is the life of being a Manchester United fan. This is why we do this.
Transfer up, downs. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. There is a lot going on. There is a lot to take in. I see some people in the comments maybe not understanding the context of what's going on. We got to break down some serious comments, some serious quotes today. Because on one hand, there's a positive scenario. On the other hand, there's an awful scenario. And I think that is what is key about today's news that has been coming out. And just to fill you in on today's news that's been coming out, and we're gonna chop it up and break it down and really dissect what's being said to us. Okay, Laurie Whitwell from The Athletic says, as things stand, the likeliest outcome is no midfielder joins Man United this summer. More signings after Sancho and Varane are dependent on sales, and movement on that front is slow. That's the negative. That's the negative. The positive, right, is he goes on to say, should United, so, you know, it's a maybe if they can, should United generate funds through player sales, Eduardo Camavinga appears to offer the most realistic midfield signing. Soundagez has been on United's radar since the days of David Moyes. I've never really bought into the Soundagez thing, to be honest with you. But I think this is really interesting because you can look at this two ways, Owen. You could either go absolutely off and say, this is bullshit. This is why we need to get rid of the players. And what are we doing? We're not moving like a big club. Or you can say, well, I'll tell you what, let's get some players out. Let's, if we can raise the money, then the most likely looks like Camavinga. How true that is, I don't know. Ruben Neves is very attainable. We can go and get him. Soundagez, I get it. I'm not really fully behind that, but he's probably attainable, even though it looks like he could be going Liverpool. There are many. This is multifaceted.
Yeah, I think also as well, you have to, situations like this, you can look at headlines or you can look at context. And it's important to have looking at context in all these kind of situations. Yes, you might look at that and be like, oh my God, we're not going to bring in any more players. And we do need more players. I think everyone will probably be realistic and say, look, as crazy as it sounds, is Sancho and Varane enough? Probably not. Is it enough to get top four? I mean, we got top four last season. I would hope top four. But to where we want to be going, to what really competing, I don't even know if win the league, but competing, we need more players. We've mentioned about defensive midfielders. That's true. But again, you have to look at these things in context because you can never win. You can never win in these kind of situations because if we continued bring in players, spend big money, you'd be saying, how many players do Manchester United have in their squad? And look at the wage structure's just been blown to oblivion and this, and this. And then on the flip side of things, you'll say, well, we're not bringing any players. What are we going to do? So sometimes you can't win, and you have to be realistic in these kind of situations. At the end of the day, Manchester United is a business. I know people don't like to hear that, but there is a business. And also it goes back to the sins of the past, isn't it? That's the important thing. It goes back to the sins of the past, long-term planning of handing out big contracts, handing out big wages, where you have to look at things and say, when you hand out these big contracts, these big wages at a club like Manchester United, where if you get sold, chances are it's a step down wherever you're going to go. Why would a player want to leave? That makes it very difficult to get a player to leave. Historically, we're not very good at selling players. When do we ever sell players for profit or a good deal? So many times that happens. And that's what's coming back to bite us now, and ultimately that's the reality that we have to live with. And maybe this is a test of those higher up within Manchester United that have had a good transfer window so far. A good transfer window shouldn't just be judged on players that come in. It should also be judged on players going out as well. The deals that are done in that sense. So again, like you said, there's ways to look at this. There's context to look at this. You can scream, you can rant, you can rave, but also you have to look at things in context and break it down into several layers, which of course we're going to do today. That's what we are. We're granular on this channel.
100%. David Naheen says, yo, starting the show off, right, coming from Florida with that 1,000 degrees / rain. Delhi guy here, big up David, always in the chat, but if he's not at work, in the Delhi counter. I literally woke up at 6 a.m. just to watch you guys live. That is incredible. That is what you call dedication. Neil Mo says, Owen speaking facts. And someone else said, we need a defensive midfielder right now. And Andy McGaw says, you can't blame the club if other clubs don't want our players. Look, What I would label at the club's doorstep in terms of blame is when it came to renewing these players without the kind of long-term strategy, we put them on big contracts. We extended. And look, football is a business, and you got to get a balance between protecting your assets, even if they're not part of your squad, so you can sell them, so that you don't end up with a Paul Pogba situation where they've only got 1 year left, so you can't get that much money, versus are they really part of the squad, so I don't want to give them too long. That's the balancing act that they're paid to do. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. If I think Owen is not going to be part of the squad, I need to work out, okay, is he not going to be part of it in a couple of years' time? Is he kind of part of it now, but I want to see how it goes, so I'll give him a 3 year, then he has 1 year to see what he can do, then he's still got 2 years if you don't want him? Or am I stupid enough, no disrespect, Owen, just using you as an example, am I stupid enough to see that... Am I stupid enough to see that Owen hasn't worked out and then still give him a big contract, and then I can't shift him? On top of that, if I pull Owen into the office and say, yo, laters, you're not playing, this is what happens when the players have the power. Because guess what? We forget as fans that, to be fair, these are legally bounded contracts. If I say to Owen, well, you just won't play, don't get me wrong. Ideally, you would want Owen, for the sake of his career, to say, well, let me go then, mate. Like, I don't want to be unhappy. I don't want to. But if Owen says, no, mate, I'm gambling there's going to be a couple of injuries and I think I'll get my chance, I'll wait it out, mate.
Yeah,
then
or even the case of, I'm not going to be able to make this money elsewhere. And football's a very short career. I'm not going to be able to make this money elsewhere. My family's settled here. My kids are here. I've got 5 years left on my deal. You've got to pay me or play me. It doesn't really matter anyway. I'll stay at home. You can pay me to come to training, and if you don't want me to come to training, I won't do that. Fine by me. Ultimately, that's situations you have where, and it's not just the money they get paid in terms of their own Man United contracts as well. Certain players realize they're more valuable to other entities, whether they're sponsors, whether they're corporate things, whatever, as a Manchester United player. If they go elsewhere, they're not as valuable anymore. Their brand gets lowered down in terms of valuation. And then there are other factors that come into it, like I said, families, etc. And this is always a situation of when it comes to managers, when managers get fired and sacked all the time, and managers always say, contracts mean nothing nowadays. So managers, maybe so. Even though if they get sacked, they get paid at the end of the day. They get the contract paid. Make no mistake 100%. About that. Jose Mourinho has made a lot of money getting sacked over the last few years, it must be said. And that's the same for players. But for a lot of the time, clubs don't want to fork out that. I've seen people go, why don't we just release Phil Jones? Okay, but we've got to pay him like 4 years of his contract and letting him go. That's not financially viable to do. That's bad business to do. So contracts do mean something nowadays. That's why people raise their eyebrows so much when you do have these big contracts being put out. That's the situation. So again, and you've got not just the players, you've got the agents as well. Imagine again, you bring someone into the office, you're leaving, I'm not playing you, and they get on the phone to their agent, what should I do? They go, well, what do you want to do? And they'll go, I don't want to leave. And they'll go, then don't leave. Stay. Yeah. Keep making the money. Exactly. Because guess what? The agent makes a chunk of that as well. He'll be like, okay, thank you very much. There's 100% different factors and stuff like that. It's not as simple as a football manager, release, gone, bring in someone else. That's why I always find it funny when sometimes you see this on social media when I'm sure you've seen this. If someone will be like, I want to bring in Camavinga, and then you go, sell so-and-so 20 million. That perfectly adds up to this amount. We'll sell them that. You go, it's nowhere near as simple as that. Nowhere near. I wish it was as simple. I wish it was 100%. As simple as that. Because the thing is in theory, like by using like a basic like formula, like that kind of should happen. But if you kind of understand the football world and how difficult it is to get players to move, especially when you've been the idiot and handed them the long contract. Yeah. And on top of that, especially when in COVID, when other teams can't afford to pay the players what you're paying them, then the players are going to be like, well, I'll move, but I ain't going to move and take a 60 grand pay cut. Like you know what I mean? People, I know this, someone was laughing about it when I said it about Varane and they took it a bit too literal. Was it Varane or was it Pogba? I think it was Varane. Like these players still think of their financial security, even though they're millionaires, because everything's relevant. Like if you're on X amount of million a year, your lifestyle reflects that. Do you know what I mean? If that, I know young players who have got big contracts. Yeah, I'm not gonna say like who, but I know young players who've got big contracts at big clubs, but haven't made it in the first team. But they are living the life. Oh yeah, because they are on. Everyone's seen it. Everyone knows that one person maybe they went to school with that did become a professional footballer, and then they're like in the youth team, and suddenly they get like a big contract. Like you were talking, like 10, 15 grand a week, and so they're already like living that lifestyle. And
it
you're
can
like, oh
happen,
my goodness.
and even more than that, exactly. Even more
And
than that, and then you're saying to yourself,
if they do get released, like I don't know, a year later, then you're like, okay, what happens? You know,
what
calm,
happens
bang,
now?
gone.
What do you do now?
You know?
You haven't got 65 grand a week, but you on loan in the Dutch league because you didn't make it at this league, or you was on loan in the Swedish league, or you have to come back. And then now I know this is a bit different because our players won't go down that low, but I'm saying the principle of saying, well, now you play for this team and they give you a fraction of that, but your lifestyle is up there. Like players still think of financial security. And if the players say, well, I'm on 120, let's say Phil Jones, yeah?
Yeah.
We effed up by giving him that contract.
Absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
It ain't Phil Jones's fault. It ain't
and
Phil
everyone
Jones's
knew
fault.
that at the time, by the way. Everyone knew that at the time. Everyone went, what?
It ain't Steve Bruce's fault and Mike Ashley for saying I'm not going to pay him the 100 thing a week. I can only pay him 70. Yeah. It's not their fault. Even it's our fault.
You know.
So how do we expect? And that's the thing that does annoy me. How do we expect to shift these players when we're the ones who effed up and put them on these contracts? And then on top of that, COVID is here. COVID has happened. Yeah. Like, as much as we hate the Glazers and we're annoyed because they haven't spent their money and stuff, COVID has affected all clubs around the world. Don't get me wrong. There are some big deals still about to happen, clearly, with the Grealish situation, potentially the Kane. That's why we just don't believe City. They chat shit. Don't plead poverty with us. Like, COVID hasn't really affected. Exactly. We're going to spend 200 M's on them.
Players.
Do you know what I'm saying? But it's our fault. Chidera says, big up Flex. Are you worried about the amount of preseason game time the first players have played? Ollie blamed preseason for last season's slow start. 1,000,000%. I said it after the Brentford game. I was really concerned. And then the following game was cancelled against Preston. And now we only have the Everton game. So that's a big worry. D, big up yourself. Thanks for the contribution. Says Pogba, Verratti, then play Van der Beek, Verratti and Bruno. So we're just going to get Verratti, I'm assuming.
That's what I mean. It's
Verratti and Bruno. Yeah, we've only paid 15 million for Sancho this year as it's spread over 5 years. Why are we moving like we have no money? Again, the finances, I don't think it's as straightforward as we think because we haven't paid them because we're paying in installments. We must have X, Y, Z, but the wages are astronomical. We still have to pay for Varane. And clearly, they're in a situation where they need to sell to buy now. And last one before I come to you, Owen, is Angia says, can we really not pay players to go? Like Barca ending player contracts. Well, but look at the financial state that Barca are in. They put Griezmann on whatever 700 grand a week or whatever it was, something crazy. And look, you have to try and pay players off to get rid of them, and they're absolutely effed. You know, Nicholas says United's legacy is being attacked. Pep staying to beat Fergie's record. Liverpool 1 league away. Chelsea being Chelsea. Just get rid. We need to be ruthless. I agree. But it just proves that the players have the power, and that's what's pissing me off.
Yeah, players, agents, they all have the power. And again, the way the contracts work is just, it's not as simple as saying you're done, you'll go, and the player going, yeah, okay, then I'll go. It's even if you wanted to release, if you wanted to today say, all right, Phil Jones, release, Pereira, release, whoever, release, that would be Man United paying off the entire contract today, right now, unless they worked out some kind of a package of, oh, we're going to pay you over this, this, and this. And I don't even know if they want to do that. Again, you have to risk of upsetting the squad. And there's so many different facets into that. A great example you mentioned about players planning for their future. At the Euros, this was the most unbelievable stat I heard. Braithwaite, the guy that plays for Barca, the guy who was at Middlesbrough, he was the second wealthiest player at that tournament, right? The reason why he was the second wealthiest player at the tournament wasn't just because of his wages at Barca, which are big for him anyway, but he has invested it in all of these different companies. He has all of these different companies, right? That makes him incredibly wealthy. So again, thinking from a player's point of view, that wage that they get, that money they get, funds a lot of other things as well. Do you think they're willing to take a dip in that? If they know, oh, I've got my own housing portfolio, I've got this, I've got that, I don't want to take a dip in pay because that might affect my other projects as well. Again, all of that plays into it. And even if United wanted to sell, maybe we say, right, Phil Jones, you're going to go to Newcastle. And he went, yes, I'm going to go to Newcastle. By the way, though, I like the wage I'm on right now. So Newcastle are prepared to pay me 50 grand a week, but I'm on like nearly like 100. You're still going to have to pay me 50 grand a week because I want to put that together. Again, that's how these things work. So either way, Man United are kind of screwed in that situation, but it's their own fault. Again, it's 100%. The sins of the past.
Like DJ Smith says just there, players only have the power because the club have given them the power, dreadful contracts. And if you notice right now, we're in the same situation with Paul Pogba. Raheem Sterling's going into the last year of his contract. There's a lot of players doing that. The new thing is now players are going, listen, if I see that I'm looking to kind of move, I just won't sign a new deal. I'll run it down.
Yeah.
I'll put the pressure on you because I'm quids in, because you know that signing on fee and the wages that you can secure if you leave on a free, bro. Like if Pogba leaves Man United on a free, like they can literally pay him 450, 500k a week if they don't have to pay a transfer fee with no add-ons, nothing, free agent. It's nuts. And players are starting to I feel like as a fan looking from the outside in, I'm not a super agent, I'm not a football agent, but my understanding of it and my opinion is that I think players are starting to exploit that. You look at the Bosman ruling that came in years ago. I think Nicolas Anelka was the first person to start doing that. Players are starting to take control away from the clubs, and the clubs need to be very, very careful about who they do not hand out big contracts to, because then it can go the other way of you didn't really protect this player that you actually do want to keep, and he's not on a long enough contract. Do you know what I mean? I.e. Paul Pogba.
I mean, even people like Varane, let's face it, we signed Varane because of player power, because he was in the last year of his contract. He told Real Madrid, I'm not re-signing. They went, well, we've got to cash in. That's the reason we got him. If he had 3 years left, Madrid have gone no, because they'd have a bit of power because they can control that. Harry Kane at Tottenham is the perfect example right now of when the clubs do have a power because they have the longer deal. But, you know, because that's the case of a player wanting to leave and the club wanting him to stay. But it comes down to contracts. Nowadays, contracts rule everything. And if you've got a player on a long contract that doesn't want to leave, they'll just won't leave. They'll just stay. And like you said, I think the general thing now is, and people realize, players certainly do now, that football is such a volatile and changing environment anyway. So like you said, if they've got a year left, they know how much can change at a football club in 1 year. Just 1 year, everything can change. You might have a manager, it might be a different manager in a year's time, might be the same manager, but a manager that says, look, you're not going to play, you've got to leave now. They know 12 months time, that might be completely different. Different. They might be like, I want you to stay. We'll give you more money. We'll do this. We'll do that. So why wouldn't a player? That's why I mentioned about Pogba. I know from a Man United point of view, sort of being loyal to the club, people want to see Pogba sign now and be like, rah, rah, Man United, we're the best. But from his point of view, it could be a completely different situation in 12 months' time. You might be like, of course I want to stay. We nearly won the league, or we got far in the Champions League, or we did this, we did that. But in 12 months' time also, we could be like 7th, have a new manager, have been knocked out of all these competitions to do, be like, well, enough's enough, I'll go. You know, so much can change in 12 months' time, and players know that. And players' hands don't need to be forced anymore. That's the Bosman ruling in general.
100%. I mean, I was looking at a piece that was saying that Pogba hasn't actually rejected I think the 350k a week. It was more that he's willing to keep his options open until the end of next month, when the foreign transfer window even closes as well.
Right.
Basically, I've got all the cards. I ain't in a rush. Exactly. And when you're as good as Paul Pogba, or we want to keep him, and some people don't, but when you're that level of player, you kind of tend to say, all right, cool. But when you're the Jesse Lingards, when you're the Dan Jameses, when you're the Phil Jones, when you're the Andreas Pereiras, when you're the Diogo Dalot, I'm not saying all of those are in their last contracts, because they're not, but when you're the player that we can see basically pound signs attached to their head because we can go and get our midfielder from that's when we get pissed off and angry. But it ain't Dan James's fault. We bought him for 15 million from Swansea, 2 years ago now. This is Dan James's third season now. This will be in it. Yeah. This is third season, 15 million. We probably signed him on a 4-year deal, I think, didn't we? With an option, maybe a 5.
We love an option,
something like that. We always an option.
Love an option. We have an option for an extra year.
Exactly.
That and they Jesse use Lingard, because they haven't signed a new deal at that point. They go, screw it, we need an option. Throw it on.
Trigger. Like that's what we did with Paul Pogba. He didn't want to add an extra year on. It was just right. We'll press this button to give us a bit more thinking time. So there's an automatic here. But Pogba signed that contract knowing that the club can just do that. But I just feel like those players we have to look at and say, this is the club's fault. You know, Ollie, how much? And this is a different discussion. How much say does Ollie have then? Because even Mourinho couldn't get players out of the club, or the players in that he wanted at the time. Other big managers at different clubs sometimes have to get forced to sell or cash in, or have to get forced to keep a player that isn't really on doing anything. How much say does Ollie actually have? Because clearly he's not getting the whole backing of like, well, you know, Dan James, Andreas, etc. I need these guys gone, and United are like, well, we'll make it happen. It's almost like he doesn't have that level of power because the power's not with him.
It would almost be like he's kind of, and again, I don't know, this is pure speculation, but it's almost like he kind of takes a policy of when they're doing training or when they're in around the club, like we don't talk about transfers around here. That's for them to talk about. When I'm talking to the players, it's only about football, it's only about tactics, it's only about the games or whatever. I don't know if he would do that, but it kind of feels like he is such a man manager in the sense he doesn't want to upset anyone. He doesn't want to upset the harmony in the dressing room, all that kind of stuff, because it has been a dressing room over the last few years that has been very up and down, maybe slightly volatile, if reports are to be believed, factions in there. But maybe it's a case of, look, because I don't have a hand in that, because I can't control that, I'm just not even really going to talk about it. You know, I'd rather talk to Dan James and Phil Jones about what they can do for me if they're going to be in the squad or at the training, and be professional, rather than, you know, getting them in the corner going, hey, do you mind leaving? Do you mind, you know, effing off, please? Can you leave? I don't think he would do that. And it kind of, the way the club is structured now in terms of the hierarchy, kind of feels like he just, I don't know, maybe this is the modern day coaching of you have your pool of players, they show up, and that's who you've got. You can make recommendations who you'd like to leave in Sao, whether or not they show up, I don't know. That's kind of what it feels like nowadays at Man United. I'll put my list of people I want to leave and want to go. Whether or not that happens, time will tell. And we've seen mistakes in the past of people like, you know, Mourinho, and even to an extent, I suppose, last year with Romero, of someone that Ollie didn't want to have around the club, but he was, even that was bizarre, of someone that
couldn't get a move.
But he looked like he wanted to leave. That was the situation where the club wanted him to leave, and he wanted to leave, and yet he didn't leave. It was like, what? Yeah. Why? So even that, but that's a great example of just United's inability sometimes of being able to just offload players. Of, it's not just got to be right for the players, it's got to be right for the club as well. And then sometimes they're willing just to put their head in the sand and be like, no, you know, boo-boo face, cross your arms. If it doesn't work for us, it doesn't work for us. We're not going to do it. But that leads to problems like now of, well, we're only going to make 2 signings this summer unless we manage to, I don't know, someone wants to cough up, but certain clubs aren't going to.
But that was, Reyes says, if Messi can play every game, so can Cavani. Well, Messi hasn't had anywhere near the injury problems that that Cavani's had. Messi's so durable. And Joe Isaac says, our board is inept, and to think Pogba may leave on a free for the second time in caps is just sickening. Can't someone do something? Damn. The way I see it is, also you have to think of, if these players literally, not down tools, but say, cool. Just say, cool. I'll be on the bench. I'll be in training. Cool. It doesn't leave you with a lot of options. This is the learning curve. You look at other clubs. Other clubs operate so efficiently. You know, they get the balance right, because that's what it is. It's about a balance. They get the balance right of giving the players that maybe don't have a future just enough years on their contract to hold value, versus the players they do want to keep are on just enough to make sure they don't go for free. That is a balancing act for the CEO, for the people who make the decisions, for the people who run transfers, for the contract negotiators, your Edward Woods, your Matt Judge. That is their balancing act. And I just feel, I know that the business we've done with Sancho and Varane is absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But here we are getting a reminder. And I'm not going to say of the old United, but I'm trying to give these guys the benefit of the doubt because they're trying to change that. But we're basically... We're seeing the scars of our old cuts. That's what's happening.
It's the sins of the past, isn't it? It's the sins of the past. That 100%. Is coming up just to bite us in the behind, because that's how we used to operate in the past. And again, and I'm not one of those people to defend the board, but again, I think people just have to realize how difficult sometimes that is to move players on, because a player might look at it as, right, I'm at Man United here. It's very unlikely. Again, if you are like a Pereira, Phil Jones, even a Lingard, right? This may be why he doesn't want to leave permanently, because he realizes that, you know what, this is my peak now. I'm not going to be at a club that's bigger than Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world. So anywhere's a step down, not just in terms of club profile, but financially as well. And I think they kind of, you get to that stage in football by betting on yourself. You believe in yourself that you are good enough. That's how you got to where you are today. And I truly believe in their hearts, they think, well, it could change any second. Maybe something comes up in the team in the season and suddenly I'm in, and then they wouldn't want to sack me. They wouldn't want to get rid of me or fire me or release me or sell me or whatever. Then, I mean, Jordan Henson's a great example. Jordan Henson at Liverpool, great example. Came in, didn't do much. They tried to sell him a couple of times. Fast forward, a couple of years later, he's the captain of Liverpool. He's winning Champions Leagues. Stuff can change quickly, and they bet on themselves. And they will bet on themselves and say, you know what? If I can just stick it out, maybe an opportunity will come. I'll turn things around. I'll work hard, because they realize, again, anywhere else is probably going to be a step
here's
down.
just a quick thing, Owen. With what you're saying, here's a real quick thing. There's some quotes coming in, right, from Victor Lindelof, right? And I'm not saying like, oh, get him out, like he should be. I'm not saying that at all, because Victor Lindelof, to be fair, with Varane coming, Varane will be the number one, but I doubt Varane can play every single game. We're going to need Victor Lindelof. I'm just saying, though, the principle of what you're saying. He's basically saying, he said, I'm always pleased to be out on the pitch to help my teammates. So whenever the boss needs me, I'll be there. He says, ever since I arrived, it's felt like home, and everyone at the club has been great to me and my family. It's my 5th season here. It feels like home, and I'm very, very pleased to be here. As are my family. He says, it's my 5th season and this is my home. I'm very, very happy here, as are my family. Of course, I want to take that role and become more of a leader and to fight to help the younger players improve. Now, look, there's no like conspiracy theory of like, oh, Lindelof won't move and that. But in terms of how a player feels at the club, even though he now knows, let's be real, he now knows he's not going to be the starting centre-back at Man United.
Yeah.
Victor Lindelof knows that. So really, I know we need backups. I'm not saying get rid of him, but his role has now changed. Do you know what I mean? Like Swifty says there, I'll play Lindelof against Leeds. Give him a chance. Look, he's ready to play. Varane, we'll touch on the Varane update later, but I think Lindelof will play against Leeds because there's not much time. But anyway, his role has now changed. He has a few options. You know, imagine Man United turned around and said to him, right, mate, Axel Tuanzebe's younger. We've given him a longer contract. We want to invest into him. He's come through the youth rank, and we don't have to pay him as much as you right now. We re-signed Eric Bailly already last year, so we've got that. Do you know what we could do if you're not really going to play? You're not even going to be second or third in command. And I'm not saying that should be, because I think he should be the next in line because he's the best out of the other two. But let's just say that happened hypothetically. But Lindelof's thing is, I'm really at home. My family's set here. I'm on a nice contract. I want a bigger role. He can start saying, well, Varane's going to get injured at some point, but he definitely will. So I'll just chill.
Exactly. And what happens if, say, a Varane or a Maguire does get injured and he steps in and Man United then go on a run of winning 10 games in a row? Suddenly, bang, he's then, priority number one in the defense. I'm not saying that would happen or not, but players do think about that. They just think, like I said, they get to this stage, like it is so difficult. I know you look at professional footballers nowadays and you look at them, go, they're pampered and all that kind of stuff. But trust me, as someone that younger was closer, it is so difficult to get there. And the amount of time and commitment you have to put into that, whether it's just, traveling all the time, the commitment of your family or whatever, and you get through that by just believing you're good enough and you bet on yourself. You gamble on yourself to get there. So just because someone else came in, it would be quite naive just to be like, well, it's over for me. I'm done. They'll be like, great competition, but I'm still going to be playing games because guess what? I believe in myself. I'm good enough. And again, sometimes that's the thing. Sometimes with these sort of transfers, it would appear on paper that it's very black and white, but it's not. There are so many shades of gray that go into these kind of things because that's how life works. But, and so someone like Lindelof, like you said, some people would look at it going, right, we'll get rid of him. We've got other centre-back options. But he might be like, look, he's a young guy anyway. He's got a young family. They're settled. They're at school. I don't want to leave. I'm on a good contract. I've got time. And then the club's hands are tied because you can't. It's so hard just to shift a person that doesn't want to leave. That's it. That's kind of right. Okay, next option, try someone else. It's as simple as that. And, it's frustrating for fans, but I think it's unfair to blame players. I know people would say, oh, surely for the good of your career, wouldn't you want to play? Probably. But again, they think in their mind, but I will play. Eventually, I'll play for Man United again because I believe I'm good enough. I got here in the first place. I believe I will play. Exactly. Players don't give in that easily. So it's so complex. It's just... I would be more leaning, like you said, sins of the past. Blame, if you're going to blame anyone, blame the board. Say, well, why did you throw out that big contract anyway? Because everyone at the time, when Eric Bailly signed his contract last season, everyone went, that's going to blow up. That's going to blow up in a couple of years' time. Phil Jones, everyone said it, that's going to blow up because how on earth are you going to get rid of him? And people at the time genuinely said for like Phil Jones, they're just doing it so they can sell him. What, in 5 years? Because they're not going to sell him next year, are they? Because who's going to touch that? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It is so true, and us as fans can see it straight away. We can see, not that we know everything, but we can get a rough idea of the players to extend and the players not to extend, and it staggers me how the board have been unable to see it in past windows. Shalil Patel says Pogba is a little bit different for me. He is clearly the best midfielder we have to play in the right position. And he could have a really good season. We win a trophy, and he ends up staying. I think Manchester United are in that position where they're going down that route now. Just he's not going to sign a new deal imminently. We are trying to give him a new deal, but Pogba's really relaxed about the situation. Okay, let's hope that with the likes of Sancho and Varane and hopefully a midfielder, if we sell some, etc., we can have a good start to the season, really be pushing, and it gets to November, December times, and Paul Pogba goes, you know what? I've made up my mind. I'm going to stay. It looks like they're gambling on that. For me, that was all. I've said it so many times here in United View. Like, that was such a reluctant gamble for me. It's a 50-50. It could either work, and he plays excellently. He's in the form of his life, because he's either playing with the freedom of knowing I'll get a move next year, or I'll get a big contract, so I'm free. I'll just play. I'm expressing myself. Or it goes to absolute shite. And we don't play very well. We maybe don't get the defensive midfielder we need. We're in a bad position or bad form, October, November, December. And all the questions about Paul Pogba and what's he going to do. And he goes, yeah, sod this, mate. This didn't really go how I thought. And then he just makes his pre-contract. That scares me.
It is scary. I mean, I said it, I think it was on the first time I was on the channel, that United, they are willing to risk losing him on a free. At this point, if it's a poker game, they have showed their hand, they are all in, and they're hoping they can pull it off. And pulling it off is convincing him to stay by, I would assume, success. I think transfers are one thing, but I think mainly he's looking for success, because he really, he knows their football career is finite and his time is ticking, and he wants to have success. I think another thing for him is he would be looking at his options and be like, okay, where do I get success? That's not as straightforward as well. PSG, they didn't win the league last season. They didn't win that trophy the other day. Barca and Real Madrid, they're not guaranteed to win the league or Champions League either. There's no sure thing like there maybe was a couple of years ago. And that's, again, I think that's why also he's weighing up his options, because, again, football can change so quickly in 12 months' time. 12 months' time, we might be celebrating about how great Man United were because we won this trophy or that trophy. I wish, but maybe that could happen. And I think he realizes that. And Mino Raiola, for as much of a Shrek he realizes that, you know what, just take your time. Take your time, mate. You've got the power. Players have the power nowadays.
They do, and that for me is the thing we've got to remember here. The players have the superior power, and they're realizing it, and it's our fault. On the flip side of all this, before we move on from this whole kind of conundrum, what's going on, if we manage to sell a couple of players, let's say Jesse Lingard's clearly said that he wants to stay and fight for his spot. He believes he's going to play. Do I think Ollie's giving him reassurances that he's going to play and get more game time? I don't think so, but I feel like Jesse has said more so what you were saying, which is, I'll take my chances. I don't want to go to West Ham. Bruno's going to play every single game. I'm ready if he doesn't play. Rashford's out for the first 3 months. I want to prove to you I can do something. I think he just thinks he can do it, which is a big decision for Jesse. He's going to need a good season to start looking to get into that World Cup squad in, 18 months, whenever it is. Yeah. He needs to have a good season this year and then half a good season the following year to really be in the picture. If he has a whole year out of not playing this year and then he goes into next year in the same situation, then what? So I think that's a really brave move from Jesse. I hope it works out, but I just can't see where he's going to play. Andreas is another one. There's talks about Dalot. Dalot said again, I'm happy to stay if no one comes in for me or Ollie wants me to stay. But there's interest from AC Milan, etc., etc. It depends on whether we get Trippier or not. Because to me, letting Dalot go and having no right-back cover would be stupid. If you're not going to get...
That's madness.
Yeah, exactly. Nicholas says, there is a way to move the power back to the team, win the league, show ambition, make United a place players don't want to leave. Well, even when we're not winning, there's some players you don't want to...
Yeah, exactly. They don't want to leave anyway. That's the part of the problem, because they're Manchester United, because they've got big wages, big contracts. Why do you want to leave that?
Pure Gaming comes with a contribution. Said Rashford injury is a blessing. He's bang average. I think that's a little bit harsh. I don't think he was playing very well, but he's not a bang average player. I know some people think he is. I think he's a very good player. He's got gears to go up. He just needed to go and get fully fit. A little bit on Rafael Varane now, a little bit of an update. Fabrizio Romano yesterday said Varane is ready to fly to Manchester on Thursday, i.e. today, as his visa situation has finally sorted itself out. And then he said about an hour ago, confirmed Varane is ready to fly to Manchester today. Again, he's still coming over here quite late. He still has to quarantine when he gets here. My gut feeling is that he's not going to be ready to play against Leeds at all. I mean, he's obviously not going to play against Everton in a friendly at all. No. That's in a couple of days. That's impossible. So you have to think of it as he's probably going to come, I think, complete his thing by Wednesday. I saw the Man United want to announce him Wednesday, and then the Leeds game's at Saturday at 12:45. 2 days training, fling him in against Leeds.
It's a big
Can't see
ask.
it.
It's a big ask, especially as well, considering again, knowing your opponent, knowing Leeds are going to be pressing you as a centre back, that as soon as you get the ball, it's going to be constant pressure, constant press, plus the 90 minutes that he maybe doesn't have in his legs right now. And again, a centre back's not a position where it's a striker of, you know, they haven't trained, but you bring them on for the last 15 because you need something. Centre back plays or they don't play. It's as simple as that. If you bring on, no one brings on a centre back for 45 minutes unless there's an injury.
No,
Exactly. And you risk, you just wouldn't want to risk it. And I think we said it before a couple of days ago that I truly believe that starting lineup against Leeds, there's going to be reactions. Put it that way. There's going to be serious reactions.
And we said there has to not be. There has to
exactly. You've got to be realistic.
You got to be realistic, man. Like none of us. I'm not saying it's okay to just have those players there and that should be our starting team. Of course not. But you have to understand what's really gone on. Because then he starts. What if he starts Sancho and Varane and they absolutely struggled, and you have to take off your centre half halfway through the game? And do you know what I mean? That's just not what you do.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, and you lose him for an injury. I want Sancho. I would rather risk play Varane than seeing Lindelof. But I would rather, and this will be controversial, but I would rather have a Victor Lindelof that's had a full preseason than a Varane that's had no time at all. Because
100%.
he's closer and more ready to play than Varane is. Of course, everyone would want a fully fit Varane, and the whole visa stuff has been frustrating, and the isolation quarantine is frustrating. But that's the world we live in right now. Unfortunately, that's just that is what it is. And this will sound like I'm playing down the game, but at the end of the day, there's 38 games in the season and it's one game. I'd rather not have him for one game than miss him for 10 because we rushed him in. He pulls a hamstring or pulls a calf and then he can't play for even longer. We don't need any more setbacks at this period of time. Certainly Varane doesn't, because it's taken so long. So it's just that lineup is going to be what it is. And unfortunately for Manchester United, that's kind of what it is for most seasons. Again, if you look back at a lot of the starting lineups for most seasons of Manchester United, it's never our strongest team. Even going back to like the Fergie years, I remember the first game of the season for when I think it was like 2008, the year we win the Champions League. I think it was like Newcastle at home, and it had just bizarre players in it. You know, it had like both of the De Silva twins, like 17, 18, playing right back, full back. It had all these kind of names you'd never seen before. But again, even that was because you were coming off of Euros, you're coming off Olympics, stuff like that. That's just how it works, unfortunately. Big clubs have big problems when it comes to preseason, and it's staggered. And like you said, I think we just need to be realistic and be like, look, if we can get through that Leeds game, the team's not going to be the best team that we can possibly put up. If we can get through that Leeds game with a win, I will take any kind of a win all day. Usually you'll be talking about attacking football. I would take a 1-0 scrappy win that we play terrible and we just get through it, because that would be a better start than last season, right? So I'll take that all day.
Oh, we just got to win. Bro,
yeah, exactly.
We have just got to win. That is all that needs to happen. We must win, especially after the bad start we've had last year. Even Bruno, some comments coming in from Bruno saying that we are ready for the season. It's great seeing the teammates. We've been training really well. I mean, he's going to say all those things. He's never going to say, "I'll tell you what, mate,
it's a mess."
I saw Paul Pogba. He's been on the Krispy Kremes. Oh yeah,
exactly.
I seen Dan James and stuff like that. He's lost the edge. He's lost a bit of pace. It's not ideal that we're not ready yet.
Jones did a bleep test and he threw up. Oh, it was terrible.
It's not going to happen. So, Bruno's comments, he said, yes, I'm fresh. I'm happy to be back, seeing my teammates again, training. It's always a good thing. It's been good. I've won the Uno tournament a couple of times. It's been perfect. The lads are ready. We have been training hard. Everyone is training really well, and everyone will be ready for the beginning of the season. So from Bruno, you've heard it here first. We don't need to worry because they're all going to be ready for the start of the season.
Exactly. They're all going to be ready. Strongest 11. We're going to get rid of 5 players easily. We're going to bring in Camavinga and Trippier. What are we worrying about, guys? It's simple.
Absolutely.
Life is so simple like that.
What we would have to do though, if these players do only have that, they will only have that game against Everton. We'll probably see the first team start against Everton, surely, because that's the last game before the first game of the season.
Exactly.
If they do put in a really good performance against Leeds, really energetic, really well, we'll have to all commend them. We will, because we do anytime Man United win. Yeah. But with the concerns that we currently have about the team, with the concerns that we currently have about the fitness and the readiness of these players, if they go and put in a good high energy performance against Leeds and get a good win with the likes of Dan James, with the likes of McTominay and Fred, with the likes of Lindelof at the back, we got to really be happy with that.
Also, I suppose as well, you would hope that you learn from mistakes, right? And last season, the opening game against Crystal Palace, not a team that presses you, but a team that we just looked so leggy. You would hope that Solskjaer and whoever would have learned from that. They would have said, you know what, actually, we need to, that was just a complete mistake. The players we picked for that game were a mistake. It went wrong. We picked players that weren't ready, weren't fit. I'm not going to make that mistake this season again. If it just means
we're
going
longer this time as well. Even though it's not ideal this time, we still got longer than we did the last time.
Exactly. So I'll learn from that mistake. I'll play players that I know are ready for that game, and hopefully we can get a result. And then if we are struggling a little bit, that's when you have the players that haven't had a full preseason that you can bring on for 45 minutes, for 30 minutes, 15 minutes. Solskjaer brings someone up 45 minutes. What am I like? That's not going to happen. We can bring them on at 85 minutes. You know, maybe they'll change the game. You know, I think you would hope he would have learned from last season. We talk about sins of the past. You know, if you keep making the same mistakes over and over again, that's when you question people. So I would hope he would have learned from last season. And look, just like we said, just get through the game. Just get through the game, get a win. Enough said.
Yeah, 100%. That is the key. It's all about that. And against Everton, I do want to see, you know, let's face it. Let's see if we can predict the team for Leeds / Everton, which will probably be the same. Sancho ain't going to play against Everton. I don't think. He hasn't even got to training yet.
No.
So it's probably going to be. Cavani. He's been a bit. He's in training, isn't he? I don't
even know if he's. I don't even know if he's back yet.
I haven't seen a lot from him.
No, I don't even think he's back yet.
Bloody hell! So I think it will be against Everton. I think it will be a back four of Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire, Shaw.
Yeah.
Dean Henderson's still injured, recovering, so we know David De Gea will play. Midfield. Is Oli going to do this random 4-3-3 that we're really hoping he comes away from?
No, I think he goes to last season. I think again, because we're playing that defense, I think he'll think of last season, but like protect the defense.
Yeah, so, exactly. So I think maybe McTominay and Fred, Bruno, probably put Pogba back on the left because Rashford's out. Probably put him back on the left. Martial through the middle and Greenwood on the right.
I would probably say that's pretty close. I wouldn't be surprised if Dan James started though. I wouldn't be stuck.
I was just about to say that. Failing that, Dan James on the left to be Dan James on the left, and then Pogba into the midfield.
Yeah, really. I would agree because then Solskjaer, there's certain players. It's a bit like Fergie in the sense there's certain players he likes for certain games. He picked Dan James for Leeds twice last season because he just likes his energy. And James, he's got energy. So I think he'll go for. I would not be surprised in the slightest if Dan James starts against Leeds because I think he'll think energy and counterbalancing their press. I think that's what
he'll probably have a good game against them.
I mean, a couple of times before he's had good games. I mean, he had likely one of his best games against Leeds at Old Trafford, you know. So who's to say he won't do that again? But the crowds are back now. That's a different kettle of fish too. That's a whole element of pressure we weren't really feeling last season. So that's going to be certainly interesting as well. And the atmosphere of a Leeds Manchester United game as well. That's going to be demanding more of the players that maybe are struggling to get through that game. There's going to be pressure from that crowd. They're not going to have people going through it at 50% too. So there's lots of different facets of that game. It's going to be fascinating, but let's just get through it.
Absolutely. Swifty95 says a show that don't even need questions asked. 10 out of 10. Appreciate that. And Michael says Oli will park the bus against Leeds. Hopefully he doesn't. If we don't get a centre mid, Owen, are you trying to give Oli any passes to say like, well, he still didn't get completely what he wanted, so you know, challenging is going to be hard, or with Varane and Sancho, with what we've already got? I know Rashford's going to be out for a while, but with what we already got, should we be expecting to challenge regardless of whether we get a centre midfielder or not?
I really don't know. Again, like I said earlier on, for me, I know it seems crazy to say that you would think putting Varane and Sancho in any team, you would think, right, surely you're going to be expecting to challenge. I don't think we're naive enough to think that because we know how important that defensive midfielder is. And that's been a massive problem for us for 2 years. And Varane coming in makes us defensively more stable, but I don't know, especially when you look at clubs like City getting a Grealish, possibly a Kane as well. We're still behind them, I think, significantly. And even with Chelsea, you know, people were saying last season with Chelsea, I know Chelsea towards the end of the season, they nearly bottled the Champions League, but ended up winning the Champions League anyway, and they got top four. they are like a striker away, and Lukaku possibly going there looking like that's going to happen now. That's a major signing. And I know, because I want to say this as well, because you see it on social media, people going, "Oh, United in the mud. Look, Lukaku, you didn't use him properly and he's come back." First of all, we talk about money coming in. We do get a significant amount of money from the Lukaku deal. That must be said too. So if we're going to be talking about money, that's important. But two, the Lukaku that's been at Inter Milan and probably will be at Chelsea, certainly in Solskjaer's time that wasn't the Lukaku that we had at Man United. It just wasn't. The evidence is there of when
he's leveled up now.
Yeah, the evidence was there when he went to Inter Milan of, he lost a bit of weight, he became more mobile, and he admitted it. He was like, especially in my last year there, I wasn't mobile enough. I couldn't do what was asked of me. I mean, I remember a game that Ollie picked him. I can't remember who it was. It was someone at home, and it was like 30 minutes in, and he was in like the penalty area. He was like hunched over, like struggling to breathe. He was like,
He wasn't. I think he got demotivated. And his game
and
suffered.
it was just, that wasn't the Lukaku. That wasn't the Lukaku that's at Inter Milan. And I don't know how he'll do at Chelsea. He's done very well at Inter Milan.
I think he'll do brilliantly.
He won a league for Inter Milan, and it's going to be fascinating to see. And it's important to state, going back to your question of should we be expecting to challenge for the titles and stuff like that. I mean, some people will be saying yes because of the players we brought in, but Man United aren't the only club that's improved this summer. The players that did well the clubs that did well last season, they've improved as well. Grealish going into Manchester City is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Harry Kane possibly going in there as well is terrifying. Lukaku going into Chelsea, that's a big deal. So it's about it's steps. I mean, if you want to talk about clubs that you'd be like, it's pretty good. I mean, Liverpool haven't signed anyone major. That's a positive, but they've got players back as well. So I don't know. I think people that would say that, we've got Varane, we've got Sancho, we've got to be challenged for the title. I don't know. I think the defensive midfield position is beyond important. That's be one, like, again, Liverpool's an example. They literally got, when they were close, but weren't close enough, they literally got defender, Van Dijk, Alisson, bang. I genuinely think it could be not as simple as, but if we get the right defensive midfielder, suddenly overnight things start to click. Suddenly, yeah, exactly. It could be something like that. It could be something like that. So I don't know. I put it this way: I think we'll get top four. I think we'll get top four. But challenging, I think it's a big ask because there's just still that heart missing from the midfield.
Danielle says, Flex, do you think Madrid are doing a fax machine thing on us with Varane? It would be funny but painful. I would not laugh. I would not laugh, bro. Like, I wouldn't. But I don't think that's happening, though. Like, they've announced that he's leaving. We've announced that we're signing him. It is just a matter of the visa situation and quarantine, etc., etc. So it's a bit of a techie situation. Lindelof will get time to heal also. No more excuses, says Todd Cantwell. And... just on that, I don't know, Owen. I think I slightly disagree in terms of the amount of the players that we've got. And Solskjaer spent over £400 million, and we come second last year. Yes, because Liverpool fell off. I get it. City started badly or whatever. But with the players at our disposal, and then you add Sancho and Varane to that, I think we've got to be in the mix. I would agree that maybe we can't win it and go that extra mile without that defensive midfielder. But even without that defensive midfielder and not a proper centre-half, no disrespect to Lindelof, and not someone as good as Sancho on the right wing, we've gone from third to second. We've beat a lot of the big teams. We've been in winning positions against some of the smaller clubs, but threw it away or didn't perform on the day where we're capable of performing better than that. I think there's no excuses for Ollie not to show us something with just Varane and Sancho. Not winning it, I agree. We have to get that defensive.
There was a period of time last season, wasn't there? There's a period of time last season where for a couple of weeks there, you thought, actually, United might be in a bit of discussion here.
It was some consistent.
When we beat Wolves at home, like last minute, there was a feeling you could see the players thought, oh, hey, we might be actually on the verge of something here. I would agree with you in the sense that I would like us to be maybe in the mix is the right way to put it. I would like us put it this way. I don't want to get to December and us be like, well, there's no chance we're winning the league. I would still like us to be in a bit of a conversation. I would like to be a conversation. Will we genuinely, by the time it gets to April, May, be winning it? I would, trust me, I would love it. But I just don't know. Again, it's consistency and those big games, which Ollie does have a good record in. Arguably, sometimes the problem is for United, it's the smaller games that we slip up in. It's the easier games that we slip up in. I don't know. I would like to be in the conversation. Put it that way. I think we should be closer than we were last year. It shouldn't be over by, like, say, Christmas or something like that. But will we win it? Ugh, I don't know.
Guys, listen, thanks very much for watching. Dope show. Good to kind of break down things and just kind of go through them and see the different sides to it. Big up to everyone in the chat. Hope you guys are feeling good. We didn't do the weather report today, actually. It's quite sunny where I am. About 22 degrees. Owen, what are you saying?
Sunny. It's always sunny here. I live in Utopia, so it's always nice here. That's the weather report.
And just to finish off, Muzzy Lines with a super chat says, I think we'll be comfortably in the mix, Flex. A CDM is vital to that. And maybe next summer, Haaland is the final piece of the puzzle for the league. I like the sound of that. Be in the mix this year. Really push it. You know, I'm not saying it's okay to not win the league, and I want us to be 2 points off winning it. But if we were 2 points off winning it plus won a trophy, then you say, right, Cavani's going to go all out for Haaland. He's the missing piece plus the defensive midfielder. The team would be there. Yep. Ollie's got to show us. Ollie has got to show something this year. You know,
absolutely.
I know we're signing out, but he's got to win something or be right up there challenging. And I don't mean like a little fake, you were top for a week or 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden by the end of the season you finish 12 points off City. I mean within a game or two of the league. Even 6 points doesn't even sound great, even though it is 2 games, because when you get into that point where City are on a roll, they're not going to lose 2 games back to back, very, very rarely, or even draw. So we need to be within 3 to 4 points in the latter stages of the season for it to say we've kicked on and really pushed City or Liverpool or Chelsea, whoever it may be, for me. Guys, we'll see you again tomorrow. We are out of here. And stay safe, people. Stay safe. Peace.